All right. Welcome, everyone, to our 2024 Global Benchmark Report webinar. And I am Robyn Brooks. I'm joined by our CEO, Rina. I'm Director of Product here. And Rina, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Rina Alexin. I'm the CEO of 280 Group. I have a background in business, worked at McKinsey, worked at MetLife. Now I've been running 280 Group for the past just over 5 years, and really excited to talk to you all today about our amazing benchmark report.
Excellent. Thank you, Rina. So a little bit about 280 Group. We are an outcome-driven product partner, and we really focus on helping product teams transform and build products that people want to buy and use. So we have complete solutions. We can tailor the content to your context. And our team of consultants is world-class. So that's a little bit about 280 Group. I do want to encourage you all throughout the webinar to ask questions. So you'll see that there is a live chat. You're welcome to interact with us. We want to keep this conversational, but you'll also notice that there is a Q&A button. If you click that and ask a question, we'll actually save time at the end to address those questions and chat through those as well. So if you have a question as we're going through, or you have a specific skill set that you're really interested in improving and want to know how you can improve, please use that Q&A button and let us know.
Yeah, and actually, we like to keep these really interactive. If we see a
Absolutely.
relevant question come through when we're on a specific slide, we'll actually pause and answer it right there. So feel free. No question goes unnoticed by us. So just continue to interact.
Absolutely. And the most common question we get is, will this be recorded? Yes. And you will get a link to the recording after the session.
Mm-hmm.
Please also connect with us on LinkedIn. You see the link in the QR code here. We share leadership best practices. We discuss the importance of product management. You can network with your peers. We have a very large group there. Please join us and keep the conversation going after the webinar. All right, so we've introduced ourselves. We would like to get to know who is joining us today as well. So please let us know. We're going to launch the poll here.
And this really helps us know how to guide the discussion if we see a lot of leaders or people earlier in their career. We just want to make sure that the information we share today is relevant. And also, I kind of mentioned it or quipped about it at the start, but Robyn and I also recorded a podcast introducing this benchmark report. So we go a little bit more into depth across our entire report. So if you have additional questions, you can always also reach out to us directly on LinkedIn. Feel free to follow us as well. But that's also another great spot to get some more information.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Looks like we've had most folks respond, and pretty good mix. Lots of individual contributors, senior product managers, directors, VP, and a couple of others. So if you said other, please let us know in the chat. That would be great.
All right. Ooh, going a little bit far. So the agenda today is, first, I'm going to be going over what is about our benchmark report. We're going to go over the key results and findings, and then some insights for everyone. So I want to get started by saying at 280 Group, we have a unique vantage point for the community. Any product leader, if you think about it, has the ability to see, maybe half a dozen to 10 teams or organizations perform. We do that on a daily basis. And so at our company, what we try to do is get all of the insights across all of the different teams and companies that we work with and bring that not just into our content and our courses, but also share it right back to the community, because we get to see some very interesting things across industries, companies, all of that. And in fact, our survey that we are presenting here today came from our business. So we used to do this kind of survey for our private clients exclusively because it gives us a perspective on where their teams are performing, where there are opportunities. And when we go in and work with the team, we like to even ask the managers, what are your expectations of the team? And then track where are the skill sets on your team in comparison to that expectation. And that's really, really powerful. It's been one of the most enlightening tools for us at our organization. And we use it across a lot of our engagements because, again, it gives us so much information. And that's why in 2018, way back in 2018, we decided to take this to the market and bring this kind of information to each individual product manager. It's a little different. When you're an individual taking this survey, what you gain is the insight for your own career. It helps you understand where are your gaps. And what this benchmark report now does for you is also gives you insight across product management. What are the expectations at a director level? What are the expectations in an industry? And so it's a really, really great tool for anybody to use, whether you're a leader or a product manager or you want to get into product management, because it really helps you become much more strategic about your career and the skills that you invest in. So if you haven't yet, please take the skills assessment. If you're a leader, I really recommend having your team go through it. Everybody gets their own individual report, but you as a manager, without even us, you can actually just potentially collect them or use them in your one-on-ones to just help guide that discussion for their career. In terms of this report, just a little bit about the methodology. It's a self-assessment. So we had to be very thoughtful about our design. As I hope many of you know, surveys are complicated. And to get to the right results, you need to understand how are you asking, how are you phrasing the questions, what kind of wording do you use? And so because this is a self-assessment and it's a typical 1 to 10 point scale, we wanted to give more insight into what does a 3 mean? What does a 5 mean, to try to get more accurate data. If you take a self-assessment and you score yourself all 10s, you get excluded from our benchmark report, and it probably is not very valuable for you. I mean, I don't think there are people with all 10s, nor should there be, because there tends to be some kind of specialization. But just for everybody here to understand the thought that went into it, it's pretty scientific, and it's a pretty robust survey. In terms of demographics, we have a lot of different kinds of people taking it. These are just to share. When you download the report, you can actually dig into the numbers. We also share a little bit about industries. We have a lot of people from software, insurance, financial services taking it. If you're a product leader and interested in the breakdown by industry, then you can take a look at the benchmark report. You could also shoot us a line. Sometimes we're able to also compile that data on an industry basis. All right, so we're going to get into the meat of it. And first, we want to launch another poll. And that's just to ask, if you could only choose one, which skill would you go for in improving next year? So can we launch? Yeah, there we go. And the skills, I'm very curious about this one. I'm going to see how many choose number 5. It's been a pretty big topic of discussion across our community, hasn't it, Robyn?
It really has.
Okay. Wow. All right. I am pretty surprised at some of these responses. Okay.
All right.
Can we end the poll?
Let's go ahead.
Share?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is really surprising that market research received a 0.
Mm-hmm.
Market research is one of the top priorities that we hear from product leaders that they want to be doing more of. But I'm very curious to find out why nobody wants to invest in that skill as their top priority.
Very interesting.
Yeah. All right.
Lots of interest in AI and strategy.
Which is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So again, just as a reminder, feel free to use Q&A. I see some questions coming in. We'll try to, again, we'll leave time at the end, but we want to engage with you all. So if you have questions, please don't be shy. All right. So in terms of key insights, so first is the strongest skill sets. This I think has been pretty consistent whenever we release a benchmark report. Domain knowledge tends to be the skill set that people rate themselves the highest. A lot of confidence around domain. And the insight here, and this is something that I brought to other product leaders, is that domain knowledge is also one of the easiest skill sets to teach. It takes years. It really does. It does take time in certain complex industries. It requires a new person coming in, really talking to a lot of different kinds of people in a company, but domain knowledge can be taught. Some of these other skills are really challenging to teach. So customer understanding, really in depth, like empathizing with the customer, active listening skills. All of these skills can be taught, but some of them tend to be harder. The other reason why we find domain knowledge should be one of the highest is that oftentimes the product managers coming into the profession are coming from the industry. So they tend to have a high domain knowledge because they were in a different role in a company and then at some point anointed product manager. The caution here is, although this is great to have a strong skill set in domain knowledge, it should not be the only skill that you are confident in, because there could be biases that result as from your personal career path when you're coming in from the industry. And so sometimes having an outsider's point of view can be very valuable too. What do you think, Robyn?
We have a question that came in that I think is
Oh,
really
great.
important right now. It's very relevant. I started in another department at my company, so I have domain knowledge, but I'm trying to learn PM skills fast. What's the most important skill to focus on?
Oh man, I think you might get different answers depending on who you ask. But I will say that it depends on what stage in the career you're in. When you are an individual contributor, I mean, honestly, starting with the customer first, and learning some of the technical things that you're going to be expected to do. What is a great requirement? How do you write that? Those are technical aspects that I think earlier in your career, you would be expected to do really well. So I would start somewhere there. Actually, take the skills assessment first, understand where your gaps are, and then try to, in our benchmark report, we actually do include some insight into what earlier career product managers are supposed to be good at. And then as you are progressing in your career, it's a strategy and process that tends to be the most needed. And it makes sense, right? The later on you are in your career, the more you are expected to set direction, set vision, and then set the terms of execution of that vision. Robyn, do you have a different answer?
No, I think that's good. We actually talked about this a little bit on the podcast as well. So it really, and someone in the chat also mentioned that it also really depends on what department you came from, right? So what skills you already have. I would focus on, leading into the skills that you come with, right? That's good. That's going to give you a starting place, and then get curious, about what you see others doing that you don't know how to do yet, and ask. Most people on product teams are really useful and helpful and willing to help their team members grow their skills.
I love it. You actually, I don't know if you saw it, but we had a comment just come in from Michael that said it's also dependent on the function.
Exactly.
Completely true. Agreed.
Totally.
All right. So we're going to move on to the weakest skill sets. And this one has also been fairly consistent. So it really is telling for us that product managers in general, they do tend to feel less confident in skill sets of end-of-life pricing and competitive analysis. I will say that these are some of the hardest things to get right. And sometimes the lack of experience of running through an end-of-life process results in a lower understanding of what it takes to be great at end-of-life. The one on here, and then pricing, I think sometimes, we do work with teams which are not directly responsible for pricing. If you're working on an internal team, typically, value-based metrics rather than pricing type metrics are more important here. But the one that's really surprising for me, especially given that we just heard that people are not that interested in their market research skills, is the competitive analysis part. Because competitive analysis, and I've seen it in so many organizations, they think they did it, but they did it once a few years ago. And because this is one of those skills that I think you get a lot of information about what your market is asking for. Now, again, we don't say follow your competition, you follow your markets, you follow your customers, but you still get a lot of information, great information from doing a really thorough competitive analysis. And this requires practice, and it requires attention, and it requires doing it more than just once a year. But I know the demands of the product manager role, and I understand why sometimes this does get put to the bottom.
We actually had a question just come in as well about
Oh.
pricing for in a SaaS-based
Mm-hmm.
space. It's a challenge to find
Yeah.
competitors' pricing listed anywhere. Would love to know what you recommend here.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, Robyn, do you want to?
Oh,
No. Okay. Sorry. I just
okay.
saw you marked that
No.
you wanted. Yeah. So we talk a lot about SaaS pricing, especially in our digital product manager course. Just as I kind of said it earlier, you'll find a lot of information out in the market, even if you can't directly view your competitive pricing information, especially in the B2B space. You'll get some feedback in engaging with your sales team around what are they hearing in the market. There are different ways to get insider information around competitive pricing. And in the end, what you should be focused on within pricing strategies is understanding the value metrics that you have in your product, because your competitive offerings, so the offerings of your competition, are probably going to have different types of features that they're optimizing for, because they hear some kind of different message from the market that they're trying to go after. And so you need to understand what is valuable about your product, your feature set that is creating the outcomes for your clients, and then work. There's a number of different ways that you could test with pricing, but like understanding that first is how you get to the SaaS-based pricing. It's not necessarily doing the competitive analysis, though again, there are ways to do that.
Yeah, a good place to start, I would just add, is win-loss and churn analysis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Find out if you are losing on price or if you're losing for other reasons, because it's really easy to focus on price when that might not actually be the problem. So pricing is important, but it is a piece of the puzzle, and that's where I really find that win-loss analysis and churn analysis. If you can talk to customers who've left or who purchased a competitor, a lot of times they'll tell you why, and it might be price, it might not.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, I am not opposed to secret shoppers too. So there are ways
Yeah.
to get pricing. There are sneaky
Yeah,
ways.
secret shopping is a good one. It also really just depends on the type of product that you have, right? And how what the competitive landscape looks like.
Yeah, great question, Alan. Thank you so much. All right, so now we are going to go into some insights, and I see some more questions coming in from chat. But what we want to share, because we did see that there are people that are earlier in their career, we want to share some of the insights from our benchmark report about your promotion path. So one of the first things that we noticed, because we are, so in terms of our demographic data for the survey, we try to separate early career from mid-career to later career, including director and then VP level and so on. And so that gives us really cool insights around what is expected. You could think of it this way, like, what is expected of me later on in my career? And it's no surprise that when you're earlier in your career, again, you don't have all the experience of doing the activities that are behind these skills. So you're going to test lower. But there are going to be significant improvements as you continue on in your career. In terms of the new PM to senior PM, some of the biggest improvements are end-of-life PM processes and marketing and launch. Again, I think that has to do with when you are in a product team and you're working through things, you're going to get more exposure to these skills. Now, I don't remember, Robyn, do you have it up around when a product leader is hiring? Or maybe you could find that while we go through to the director, because I want to just share the rest of this data.
Sure.
Okay. And when you're in the senior PM role and you're looking for a director role, this also should come as no surprise. It's going to be more expected of you to understand, and I said it earlier, the strategy piece. So marketing launch remains really, really critical. And also, just to kind of note from our experience in working with clients on engagements, go-to-market is one of the challenges of doing product management really well. Especially when you are in an environment where you have multiple products, you have a product portfolio, the go-to-market piece is not just about launching the product. It's a lot of the skills that if you have a product marketing organization, you're often working with them, but sometimes you're not. And so it's like the go-to-market strategy, the sales enablement, what happens after you launch is also very, very important and sometimes disjointed. So think about if I'm in a director role, I'm going to be responsible for working cross-functionally with my peers. So it's not just having the skill set, it's what are the expectations and the activities around that skill set when you are a more senior level. So I think that's some of the insight that I wanted to share when you're thinking about your own career, to also just be thoughtful. Okay, it's not just what I'm doing today, it's how do I progress in my role today to set me up for success for that role that I want in the future. Also, asterisk, not everybody needs to be a director. Not everybody needs to be a manager. Not everybody wants to be a manager, right? It's a very different role to be a director of product versus a product manager. And there are fantastic, fantastic product managers where they are career product managers. They love the work of a product manager as an individual contributor rather than managing the work of others. So I did want to also say that not everybody needs a path to director. We also do see some people do want to know this, so that's why we're sharing this information. Okay. In terms of another question, I saw someone from Walter around where does data analytics stack? So we do have a separate skills benchmark where we focus on the digital space, including data and analytics. We do have data throughout a lot of these skill sets because data it's like an input into a lot of the other the other product management activities around business skills, forecasting, pricing, market research. And so it's not called out here as its own skill. I think we do call it out in our other skills report. And it is super important, but it's kind of like important everywhere. That's why we have questions across these 15 skill dimensions around data. Okay, good question. All right, so we did get asked, how do I improve my skills? I'm gonna, again, all of these have asterisks. I like to put my own color. Yes, we do provide some training and we do it because it's valuable. Training does improve skills across the board. And we know this because when we work, I mentioned it earlier, we work with on our private engagements, we do measure the before and after. And here is the important piece. It's not just about the promotion path. When you're a product leader and you're looking across your team, the reason why training is so valuable is because if you have different team players who end up being more, I guess, subject matter experts in a certain skill, everyone goes to them. Like pricing, for example. Everybody has somebody on the team that could be very naturally good at understanding pricing. They love numbers, so they are more talented in that field. Now that person gets all of the questions around pricing directed at them. And so the other way in which training improves skill sets is that it kind of helps even out the skill sets on the team. There's still going to be outliers on every team, but it helps everyone come up to a baseline understanding of what's expected of them so that they can actually become much more effective in their role. And that person who's really great at pricing now gets to do more of their job instead of just always answering questions for the rest of their team. It's something that we see over and over again in our engagements.
Exactly. And it is natural, as Rina mentioned earlier, for there to be some specialization over time, right? So it's great to have a pricing expert on your team as long as they're not doing everyone's pricing, right? Yeah. So having that sort of baseline set of skills for the whole team does allow people to both specialize and be more effective.
Okay. So I did want to bring up how do I hire for a PM?
Yeah.
Point. Okay, this is just another data point that we test this all the time, just to understand what is the market in terms of how many people have received training, how many people have not. In general, what we have seen is some increase in demand for training. And then I know in our benchmark report, which I'm pretty proud of, is that 280 Group's product training actually sets a higher level of increase in skills than other people's training, but that's just me. Can't help it. While Robyn's looking up that information, let's launch this next poll about product process. So the question here is, does your organization use a consistent product process? Man, this is one of those times where I want to have conversations with the people here. One of my favorite things to do is just talk product all day with the product people. So thank you guys for joining us today. All right. Okay. So I'm gonna end the poll because I think we got a lot of people answering. I'm gonna share the results.
Okay.
I'm actually not surprised to see a good amount of people say that there's some process, but mostly focused on delivery. I think that's telling of our times. So in general, what we have found is that typically there is process on delivery. There is less process or less understanding of what needs to get done earlier in the product management cycle. So during the investigate discovery phases, there could be ad hoc ways in which people experiment, in which people analyze the data if they have access to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I do see out in the market right now, there is just more and more focus on delivery. Now, it does make sense. I mean, we hear it. Where are the results? Where is the thing that we are shipping? Because that thing that we are shipping, oftentimes leaders in the C-suite believes that that is tied to revenue. If we just ship 10 more things, we're going to get like 10x more revenue. And the problem here is that while, yes, it's great to have process and great to have delivery, it's not, and we say it, and I'm like preaching to the choir here. It's not just about shipping the thing, it's shipping the right thing. And that requires thoughtful approach on what is a process in which we figure out and make those decisions, because the decisions on what we are working on are ever more important than just that we are working. Robyn?
Yeah, that can be difficult to socialize, right, across the organization. If stakeholders are very focused on delivery, it's no surprise that your process would be mainly focused on delivery. And it's okay to focus on that for a while, to get good at shipping things. But it's also important to make sure you are shipping the right things, right? That's why a lot of products fail. If you're very focused on that, without putting an equal investment in pressure testing, that you are building the right next thing, and that it's going to be valuable to your customers.
Yeah, and another point on socializing. This is, again, for those who are interested in the career path to director and above. Again, that is really going to be, I think PM process is one of those skills that is ever more important the more senior you get. One, because you're establishing process, you're trying to optimize it, and you're also going to be responsible for cross-departmental sharing of the process. And that the point here is to create a product-led culture in your organization, is to bring everybody along for the journey of why things are happening, why decisions are being made, at what point are they being made, how are they being tested and validated, and process helps with all of that. In fact, process helps with just about all skills. I think that's the point we're trying to make here, and something that we test over and over again with our own engagements. So we also saw in terms of how prevalent are product management processes. Now, the audience here, I think nobody said that no, there is no process at all. That's good news, because across the whole landscape that we have surveyed, typically about a third do not have any process. Okay, I've said process so many times. Even in a small company, we have a process. And the reason, again, is because it lifts, it elevates the product team, and it helps everybody get on the same page of what is happening and why. And it's so important because when there's that saying of you can't unknow what you already know.
Mhm.
And product managers, they live in the center of most of the knowledge. We mentioned data. Data is so important. You get a lot more of it than many of your other colleagues in other departments. Now, everybody does have some data. Marketing has some data. Sales teams, obviously, they have some data. They think sometimes they have the most data because they talk to customers every day. But the product team is the consumer of a lot of different data points in the organization. And that is why their role when that is happening is so valuable for a company, because the decisions that need to be made are going to be much better informed when they're made by the people who are consuming information, having a framework in which they're able to analyze that information, validate what is true, understand the risks, and make those decisions. That is the job of the product manager. That is the ultimate job. And so that is why, think about if you're in a company, if you're one of the people that's elected, we do have process, but it focuses on delivery. Yes, good. You need to work on the other part, because the value of your role is less about the delivery. Okay.
Mhm.
Because I did this, I think I posted this on LinkedIn. Okay, project management salaries are 50% of product manager salaries.
Yeah.
Not that delivery is not valuable. It's just that that is a skill set that can be had. The bigger skill set, I guess, that I was being asked to before is really the customer understanding piece of really understanding why you're making these decisions to begin with. And you can't do that without a good process, and you can't do that without a good skill. Okay, I'm off
Yeah.
my soapbox here, I think. Robyn, did you want to add something?
No, I think you covered it. Yeah, it is important to make sure that you're balancing the skills. If for no other reason, if you're on a team where you're really either focused on delivery or you don't have a really solid process, having everyone aligned so they know what's expected and they know how to do with that consistently it's half the battle, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so now make no mistake, this chart is one chart that I like to point to when I talk to product leaders, when they're not necessarily understanding the value of process and why we care about it so much. Because from our point of view and all of the engagements that we work with, the reason what makes our company so special is we do both, right? We view training really as a articulation of what's expected of product managers so that we lift skills by making sure everybody's on the same page as to what is expected and what they're supposed to be doing. And the data doesn't lie. When you have no process, typically product managers find that they do not perform at the same level as peers that do. Even an ad hoc process, which I would categorize some unfinished process, the ones that really are very strong here tend to operate in organizations that understand product management, that have a product-focused culture, which understands why product managers are making the decisions that they are. And where that is missing, the reason why you're also seeing lower skill sets and lower overall confidence in the role is because you end up having a lot of these little battles with other departments in these situations. So typical one is just defending the strategic part of the job that I just was talking about, how it's so valuable. It's so valuable to know your personas. It's so valuable to have time to do that competitive analysis, because you're supposed to be consuming this information so you can make really informed decisions. But if you have to defend, why are you spending time talking to customers, running interviews, running these experiments, some of them fail, right? Instead of just shipping the 100-item list that's on somebody's wish list. If you have to defend that, you're going to be stuck in a solution-oriented, feature-based factory team. And it's just no surprise. You're going to be less effective and less successful in the ultimate role of the product manager. So benefits of PM process here. Now, some of this, I'm big on data. End of life, PM process, competitive analysis, they get the most improvement. Yes. But that's also because they are some of the weakest. So the improvement level, right? The denominator is lower. So it's going to be a higher improvement level. But you see that yellow, the size of the yellow bar is something else to focus on. However, what I like to point to is that even the skills that are strong get a boost. Communication gets a boost. And I think in what I've found in talking to different product leaders is that even if communication gets rated pretty high, like people think that they're good at it, the demands of communication have gone up since everybody became, I mean, product teams have been remote before, but usually they were remote with the development usually was somewhere offshore. Now much more remote teams, much more coordination, much more communication. And if you know what you're supposed to be working on, why and when, which is the benefit of process, it's much easier to understand how to communicate with the rest of your teams. So again, I feel like I'm talking a lot about this, but I really care about it. I've seen the improvements where we've installed, went from, no formal process, very delivery focused, for example, to having an understanding of what product managers, what the role is, what the strategy is, having again, process around it, yielded just incredible results. Like one of our clients, they had a crazy $500 million gain in valuation just from inputting this. That's why I care about it so much. And that's why I'm speaking to the product leaders here today, where they're understanding your role is so valuable in your organization. You can unlock so much value if you focus on this. If there's nothing else that you could take away from it, ironically, from a skills benchmark report, is invest in your team and invest in the things that you're asking them to do, which is the process. Okay. Robyn, any questions or anything that we can answer?
No, if you want, we can talk about the data point that you wanted to talk about before, which was the skills when hiring a product manager.
Let's do it. So this is also really important. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you go to the next slide, it should be there for you.
Oh, great. Oh, look at that. You added it just in time. Okay. So skills to look for when hiring a product manager, since we did have a number of you, right, that you are in the leadership roles. This is also good information to know if you are trying to get into product or earlier in your career. This is what we found should be tested for in an interview basis, because we find that candidates, these are the skills that candidates tend to score a little bit weaker on. Some of these are more of that hard skills that we've been talking about. And here's my advice. I don't know if I said this in the podcast or not, but in any interview process, know what you're trying to test for, and then have a test in your interview. So this may be something you do live, right? You might need to give some kind of case study or information, and then you ask them to do some analysis. Or, and this is also pretty helpful, you ask to see past work. This happens in a lot of different industries. I don't know if it happens. I'm encouraging it to happen also in product management. It's, how do I put this? Designers, marketing folks, they tend to have portfolios. And they're able to share with future employers what their portfolio is, and that de-risks that decision for the leader. And the decision for the leader to get the risk for product, you need to have a portfolio. That's what I'm trying to say, is think about your own career. What work product now? You have to know company confidential information. I'm not saying, don't do any of that. But think about your portfolio of your work that you're able to share, and then, just edit it so that it hides company confidential information.
Yeah, it's important to think about this in real time too, right? So as you're working on something, if you've done a market research analysis that you're proud of, there's ways you can sanitize that data to say, here's the improvement that this resulted in, right? Here's how it changed the strategy that we were working on. But you do have to be thoughtful about saving those artifacts in a way that doesn't expose any company confidential information.
Okay. Thank you, Robyn. I just saw a question come in.
Mhm.
Everyone on my team does their work efficiently, but there's some difference. So they're talking about the confusion with stakeholders. How do I
Mhm.
get everybody aligned? I'm not sure where to start. What do you think, Robyn?
This is this is a question that I think comes up for everyone, right? At some point in your career, maybe you're an individual contributor, or maybe you're just stepping into a senior or a leadership role, and you see everyone working and they're got their heads down, they're getting their job done, but one product manager does something a little differently than another product manager, and then the stakeholders get confused. I see this really often. And one thing to focus on, I mean, coming back to process, having everyone aligned, there's a reason why Rina and I value that so much. Having everyone aligned on a process. So if you're individual contributor, we have resources, free resources available for download on our website you can use to get you started. We highly recommend that you talk to your leadership, talk to your peers, find out if there are members of your team that are kind of stronger in different areas. Might recommend, hey, let's align on this process. If you really struggle to kind of get everyone aligned, then come talk to us. We would love to help.
Yeah. Okay, in our engagements, I'm going to talk to this question. In our engagements, so the top three that tend to come out, roles and responsibilities, a strategy, and then stakeholder alignment. So confusion with stakeholders happens in so many different organizations, and I think Robyn just hit it on the head. It's people are confused because if people are doing things differently, that means you don't have consistency. And not having consistency is super common. It's common because teams change, people change on teams. And so sometimes onboarding and training new people doesn't happen appropriately. It's really, really helpful to have a visible playbook by which your entire team understands what you're doing at every phase of a product's life cycle. And if you don't have one, there are a lot of resources. I obviously am biased. We have a playbook that we use internally in our team, and we help implement it at organizations. You need to get on the same page, usually do a RACI discussion, like a RACI or DACI, whichever one you use, to get roles and responsibilities ironed out, and then figure out, like, just even put something simple on a Miro or a mural board in terms of what are the activities that we do, and then what do we expect from other organizations. And those can change depending on what kind of product or service you're working on. But at least it's something to start, and then bring stakeholders into that conversation as well. Because, yeah.
Oh, we had a question come in. You mentioned
I
RACI.
mentioned, hi, Helen.
Alan
Okay.
asked regarding alignment with stakeholders, what is your experience with or specific recommendations of RACI, Rapid, or any kind of roles matrix? Is it useful? Is it busy work? I think it can become busy work. It really just depends on the problem you're solving with it, right? How much you need to invest with it.
We find that something simple is usually best. So I mean, I believe we use a RACI internally, and we do it across different teams. And here's why it's not busy work, or how it can be not busy work, is if you get the entire team talking about it. So what we view these role matrices are really just a starting point for discussions. And it's really, it's in the discussion that it's valuable. And again, having that set on your team, it could be the product team, and it could be so just the people product manager titles, and then it could be the product team, like overall, like who is involved in getting a product to market, and getting all the stakeholders in the room just understanding, hey, this is where we are, here's the expectations. I'm going to say that it's more valuable than you think, because those conversations are not happening. And that is why people get misaligned or confused. They might happen, something like I said earlier with competitive analysis, they might happen once and then never again. And then teams change. And then,
And that's I think what the takeaway is. It's not busy work if you use it. If you sit everybody down and fill out a RACI chart, and then you pin it to a cork board and never look at it again, it wasn't useful. But if it does provoke conversation within the team and with your stakeholders, and it ends up resulting in valuable change and better alignment, it is absolutely invaluable.
Yeah, great question. All right. I did want to show this up. This also is in our benchmark report, some of the benefits of product management transformation. So it's like the why. So why is it important to invest in your team and your skills and your process? It's really to get better results. Right now, and I'm in talking with product leaders, they're being tasked with how do we get revenue today? A lot of companies have the discussion of we need it today, we need revenue, we need profit. And you can't really do that if your team is completely ad hoc and misaligned. You really need to invest in what you're all expected to do. Because unfortunately, if you don't understand the value that I was talking about before around how product teams bring value to the organization, which is in making really good decisions about what work gets done, then it's not as valuable. The other way that I'd like to think about it is that we used to have this slide where the product manager is basically at the center of all the other departments, because they interface just with just about everybody else at the company. And so they're some of the most valuable people in any organization when they are allowed and empowered to do their job and they know how to do it and they do it well. They're some of the most valuable people in the organization. Because again, they're making a lot of the decisions that is an input into a lot of other people's work. Like marketing now has to market the product. Sales has to sell the product. Engineering has to build the product. There's a lot of other people's work that gets decided. And so it's a decision-making ability that is so, so important. And you can't make decisions if you're not a person who's curious, who knows how to learn, who knows how to experiment, and who knows how to gather all the information necessary to make the decision. Now, I'm not saying, okay, there could also be decision paralysis, but good product managers, they know how to get enough information out from the market, out from internal stakeholders to make good decisions. We also know this really helps with employee retention, because nothing is going to scare your best talent away as much as feeling like they are screaming to a void of they know what they're supposed to be doing and they're not doing their fun work. So in terms of employee retention and engagement, having a product management team that is empowered, that knows what they're supposed to be doing and is able to do it really well is super, super valuable for any organization. As we just are starting to wrap up, again, I see a couple more questions, but we'll leave time right now. I just wanted to say, if you haven't yet, we did go over a lot of the insights, but download the Product Management Skills Benchmark Report. Here's a QR code. We are going to be doing this every year because it's so, so valuable. The insights that we get from the product community, we want to bring it back to the product community. So please download it. Let us know what you think as well. Just follow us on LinkedIn and shoot us comments, engage with us. Ask questions, because as we do the next iteration, if you're curious about something, we could ask more questions or different questions of our product community and bring that again back to you. As a special, because you have attended this webinar, we have a current promotion running for the code Benchmark 2024. You get 15% off any of our upcoming classes. You see some of our great people who are here listed, who are running our upcoming courses. I can't pick favorites here, unfortunately, but I will say that Roger was my trainer. And man, they're all so good.
They really are. They really are.
They're all so they're so good. Roger's great, Joe's great, Tom is great. They are all very different, and they all bring their heart and soul to these training sessions. Please also follow them on LinkedIn. You'll see, if you are a 280 Group fan, you'll see that we often drop videos featuring some of our trainers, and they have so much knowledge to share with the product community. They're just fantastic people. So,
absolutely.
All right, time for Q&A. Okay. So I see a couple questions. Again, if you want to ask some more questions of things that we didn't cover today, please just feel free to use the Q&A button or the chat. But we can get started with just a few that are here right now.
Okay, great. All right. I had a question come in about pricing, and we've seen this again. Finance controls our pricing. How do I improve this skill set when I don't have any ability to influence it?
Yeah. Okay, so we hear this a lot, and we hear it not just finance control skill set, but I mentioned it earlier, if you're an internal team, that sometimes you don't have a pricing, you have more of the value metrics.
Yeah, if you're a platform product manager, for example, we get that a lot. How do I work on this skill when my product really is an internal product used by the other products, but it doesn't have its own pricing?
Yeah, so I think that there's still a lot of information that you can get from your product when it's currently priced. Again, I think Robyn mentioned it, doing the win-loss analysis helps. There's just other things that you could be doing around pricing to understand the value that your product is bringing to the market. And there's always the opportunity to go talk to whoever you think is in finance that is running pricing analysis, and take them out to virtual coffee or in-person lunch and just say, I really want to understand your thought process. This is super valuable, by the way. If you can get a really good finance person to share with you how they think about pricing, I think you learn a lot. I really encourage, even if you currently do pricing, I still encourage, try to find in your network somebody who's finance minded, and see what they say.
Yeah, and I want to just double click on the measuring value, right? Because if you are a platform product manager, or you're working on an internal product used by your company, right? It doesn't have a price, but every product and every technology that you work on building has a value. So if you think about and kind of substitute the word price for value, how do I measure the value of my product? And is it delivering on internal efficiency improvement? Is it improving the user experience of my internal customers, right? In order to build the right products that have the right value, you need to be thinking about what problems are they solving. And that goes right back to the strategy conversation, right? So there is a way to measure your product's value, even if you don't directly influence its price.
Thanks, Robyn. So I see a question here from Ben about AI. It's like AI is everywhere these days. So where can I learn about AI? Robyn, what do you think?
There's it changes all the time. So really, it's important to think about AI in the context, if you're thinking about it in your product, right? We see a lot of, there's kind of three categories that I think about AI, where you have people that are really wanting to be an AI PM, right? I'm going to go work on building a large language model. I am going to be implementing these technologies. I'm going to work closely with data scientists, and I'm really going to be focusing on the technology itself. That is one type of AI role. But that's sort of this sliver of the market. And then you've obviously got people who are thinking about how to just use AI to do product management better, right? We've done a couple of webinars on those. I recommend going and looking at that. We talk about kind of how you can incorporate that into your product management operational model. But the biggest thing that I see is, I work on a product that isn't AI, but how do I evaluate whether I should put it in my product or not? How do I do that? And that really comes down to good product discovery, the strategy. How am I going to look at the overall market, right? If I'm working on a B2B product, am I selling into a space where if I put AI in my product, I wouldn't be able to sell it there? Because of the rapidly changing regulatory space, right? So there's a lot to consider. I would say the first step is just kind of giving yourself a primer on what the technology is, if you're not super familiar with it, kind of how the regulatory landscape is changing, and then really just investing. It all comes back to doing effective product discovery. Every time there's a disruptive technology, and we see this every few years, there's a big disruptive technology. It comes down to the same product management principles and skills that you use to evaluate whether it's a good fit for your product.
Yeah, I'm just gonna echo something that Robyn said. First of all, we do have a couple of great webinars on the topic. They're hosted, I think, often by Dean Peters, so someone else you should follow, on one of our fantastic trainers. So I will say that so that's something else that I'm talking to a lot of product leaders about, AI. And the other thing to note is not everybody think, Robyn, you kind of mentioned it. Not
Mhm.
everyone is going to be tasked with bringing AI internally. So the other kind of skill set is, how do I evaluate AI from other companies? Because not every, like, if you're a product manager, for example, at a financial company, where there is a lot of regulations, unlikely you're going to be building something homegrown, but you may be needing somebody else's technology. And there's a lot of different kinds of AI. I think right now, most of the time we're talking about generative AI, but there's been AI in the market for a number of years. It's just, I think there's just some more of a commercial, person or people facing type technology right now with generative AI. That's been really interesting. Okay, I think we may have time for just one more question. Thanks for bringing those questions in, and then we'll wrap. Okay.
Okay, this one's really interesting. I'm currently a product owner focused mainly on delivery, but I'm more interested in product strategy. How can I improve my skills in a way that demonstrates I'm ready for that promotion?
Oh man. Okay. Yeah. Where to start? Okay, so I think this has to do with what I spoke about earlier, where there are, and we're seeing this, and we've seen this, but I feel like we're seeing it even more, where product professionals, product owners, and product managers are just being tasked with just a delivery piece. Product owners even more so, because
Yeah.
that's their, typically they're working in the agile team, and that's more of their job, is the execution piece. Now I think that it comes down to, I'm going to steal Robyn's probably point around product discovery, really understanding the why behind decisions is the strategy. So what can you be doing as a product owner to understand what information is out there in your company? How do you talk? I know sometimes there's just never enough time, but how do you get out into the market, get outside of the building, and talk to other people in your market so that you can be really good at understanding the why behind decisions? And that really is what informs strategy. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I agree. Talk to your product leaders, let them know that it's something you're interested in. You might be able to do a ride along where you listen in quietly to customer interviews or a focus group that's being run by a member of your team that is focused more on strategy. And I also just want to put out there, not everyone who's focused on the delivery side wants to do strategy. It's okay to specialize too. There are career product owners that are very good at their jobs, and that's valuable, right? But if it is something you're interested in, then talk to your leader, find ways to contribute and learn and grow your skill sets in that area.
Great. Yeah, good point, Robyn. All right, everyone. I hope you learned something about our skills benchmark report. Our goal, again, is to get information out in the market to help you make better decisions about your career. And I hope today you saw that there's always something new to work on. The product manager job is very hard. It's very varied, but it's also, we know this, it's also so rewarding. So there's always something to work on. That's the exciting part. And that's why we find that a lot of product managers are continuous learners. And I wish you all just a more successful year. Take our skills assessment if you haven't yet, and plan to actually work on something this year. Be strategic with your career. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
Thank you.